Hello everyone. And if you see me with this t-shirt, that means it's time for Startup Bulgaria. We are 1 week away from our next edition, which is called the Scale Edition, where we'll be talking about scale. And today I'm here with Stefan Ivanov from Ampeco. Hi, Stefan.
Hey, Yogi.
Thanks
Pleasure
for
to be
finding
here.
the time. I
Yeah.
know it's beginning of the year, beginning of the next month, so I'm pretty sure that it's very busy time. So highly appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of your experience with us. What I've prepared for today is several questions that I think will be very useful for everyone watching and for everyone who is planning to attend the event in a week from now. It's hopefully it will be more and more frequent case, but there are not that many Bulgarian companies that are scaling globally. And you are having the honor to be one of the co-founders and the chief revenue officer of one of them, Ampeco, as people can see on your t-shirt. So maybe first question, very broad one. How does it feel to be the co-founder and chief revenue officer of a company that just got 26 million investment round?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the invite, and I'm really happy to share our experience with the audience, and of course, be great to meet in person next Thursday. Um, I would say that I can define it as twofold. On one end, when you close this round, and we even closed it during a pretty difficult time, and especially in the e-mobility space, where when we were raising, there was actually companies, going bankrupt. We even got one of the kind of like the thought leaders in the space posting on LinkedIn once we announced the round that the Series B investment from Ampeco is the only good news I've seen in this industry for the past 3 months or so.
Nice.
So this also feels like a success, and also it's a great testament for what we've achieved, and the whole team actually we've achieved over the years to be perceived as one of the leading companies in the space. We're actually identified as in the top three vendors by IDC, which is a company similar to Gartner. They're doing these quadrants. So they've done a really good job, and this was, of course, um, the investors actually voted with their money when they trust you. So we got a high level of confidence from, I would say, good amount of investors, and we picked Revi at the end. And at the same time, it's also like you feel like the game is, you kind of complete a level, but a new level is starting, and this new level comes with new challenges. It's harder, like in a normal game, and of course there is completely new things that you haven't thought so much about in the past, or let's say you've kind of thought about it, but it's what's more like, okay, this is something for later. Now are things that you say, well, I need to really step up the game on these topics, and tackle them more directly. Like, for example, what do you do with this money to spend it in an efficient way, right? Because
Yeah.
when you get money from investors, it's not like, okay, you actually put them in the pockets, or you can buy, fancy stuff. It's much more how I convert this money to more value for the company, and of course ultimately increase the valuation, so all the shareholders benefit. So this is where we are right now, and the past few months was a lot on kind of refining our strategy, and reevaluating our budgets and plans, and how we deploy more money, including more aggressive international expansion, Western Europe, US, and other places, in a way that we believe will lead to you know um, efficient growth, because that's, I think, the most important thing lately, uh, maybe apart from AI, because I know there's a little bit different space,
Yeah.
but in all the other businesses, it's grow efficiently, right? So spend
Yeah.
wisely, of course, spend, you want to grow, but don't go crazy, right? So that's
Got it.
top of mind right now.
Got it. Okay. Totally makes sense. And thanks for sharing that. For those people who don't know you, most probably they're going to go on LinkedIn and they're going to see that you have more than 19 years of experience, mainly sales, business development. And I've seen that you were at some point training sales teams, and I think you still actively do. And I guess as a chief revenue officer, you
Well,
have
not
to do
at the
it.
moment, unfortunately.
Okay, not in the moment. I mean, you're busy with like
I stopped when we
different.
started Ampeco because one thing about
Yeah,
startups, you need to give like at least 150% of what you can give.
yeah,
So unfortunately, it's something that I'm missing. But apart from this occasional, talks here and there, I'm not able to do much more.
yeah. Got
That,
it.
but I was doing it before, yeah.
Okay. But generally, you've been on both sides, like training others to sell, and then now kind of heading the sales organization. So, um, can you give us like some insights? Kind of I mean, what does it take to be leading an organization as a chief revenue officer? What are the skills that one needs in order to succeed?
Yeah, so I would say first of all, in Bulgaria, chief revenue officer is not a very I wouldn't say it's not a popular, but it's not a role that really usually encompasses what it should encompass as the let's say broader definition. Because chief revenue officer is pretty much the guy who should cater for all revenue, and a lot of people think that this is just a sales role.
Yeah,
Actually, it's much more than that. And let's say in a mature organization, like a big organization, you have the chief revenue officer, and you quite often have VPs or SVPs, and quite often you have even a VP or SVP of sales, which is really focused on the sales aspect. And at the same time, revenue is a much broader topic, right? It actually starts from owning the whole go-to-market strategy and how what you're doing as a company in terms of products, services, or bundles of all of that is aligned with specific customer needs and specific segments, being regional, of course, being vertical industries or use cases, whatever. So all of this puzzle, how you align it to what the market needs, and then how you distribute resources on the marketing side, what you do to kind of get in touch with potential customers, also outreach or business development, all the things that are needed to get in front of a potential customer. Then, of course, the sales machine, which depending on the business can vary, but in Ampeco in particular, it's I would say quite complex because we're doing B2B enterprise sales, which is probably the most complex sales dynamics you can have. So in that case, we have account executives who are people who are actually working closely with the client and guiding them through the whole sales process. They're doing demos, of course, understanding what they need, and actually bringing in resources from the rest of the company to tackle the specific topics. Then we have the pre-sales team, which has even two departments. One is a little bit more business, and they're doing more complex demos or setting up use cases or discussing use cases and needs with the client. Then we have the technical architecture consulting team, which is focused much more on how we technically solve certain challenges, how we integrate with other systems like ERP, CRMs, how our clients develop certain functionalities on top of the Ampeco platform, or how they integrate with other systems like Salesforce, for example,
yeah.
SAP, Dynamics, and so on. And then we go into what happens after you sign the contract, right? And then we account management teams, customer success and support teams come into play. And to make things even more fun, we even have some additional teams that are focused on specific aspects of our industry and our business, that are kind of acting like SWAT teams. When there is a difficult problem in this area, they're jumping in, helping out, and then they're getting out of the client. So actually, all of that is something that the custom as the chief revenue officer is responsible of. So I'd like to say everything that covers how we find the customers, how we kind of sign them, how we agree that we are the best fit for them, and how we make sure they stay with us for the long term.
Okay, everything kind of, yeah, customer acquisition and retention. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I mean, as you said, like you're preparing even more aggressive expansion to Western Europe, the US, and so on. So apparently, in your role, you work on a daily basis with customers from different markets, different cultures. So are there any similarities or differences that you see from one market? And I don't want you to generalize because I know that like stereotypes are not good, but generally, I'm pretty sure that there are some common trends that you see on particular markets.
Yeah, I mean, I would say first of all, in Ampeco, we are blessed because we have customers in pretty much every continent in the world, with the exception of Antarctica, right?
Yeah,
So we actually have touch points with people from yeah, every region you can imagine. Um, Still, our main customer base is Western Europe, UK, Ireland, Nordics, and North America. But we have customers in place like Taiwan, for example. The biggest charge point operator there is our customer. Singapore, actually the whole Southeast Asia, we have around 20 customers, and these are, big names. Some names like Hyundai, for example, is using us for their whole Southeast Asia business. Brazil, Morocco, the energy company of Morocco is our customer as well. So we have actually a pretty broad view. And Middle East, we have several customers there, including the energy and water department of UAE, which is pretty much the government, right? So
yeah,
even the government is using us. And I can say there is a lot of specifics. Even if we take Europe, for example, France is one thing, Germany is another, UK totally different. This is where having more local presence, local people helps tremendously, especially if you are in the enterprise sales, where the client really needs to feel like you're very close, you'll be able to support them. North America is a totally different game. I mean, even the way these guys think is completely different from Europe. What I like to say is that in US, for example, if they tell you the deal will close in 1 week, actually it will close. In Europe, if somebody tells you it's going to close in 1 week, they probably mean like maybe 2 3 months when
yeah,
legal actually get into play. So there is this type of differences. Also, just um, I mean, the perception when you are in Bulgaria, and that's something that I would like to talk when we are on the event. It's something that is creating challenges on its own, right? Because we are in Europe, which is actually good. I mean, we are in West in EU, which is even better, but you're still a little bit on the outskirts, right, of
yeah,
where they would expect a company that's providing a business critical platform for them to be mostly present. I mean, we are, and my history before was really scaling companies from Bulgaria to become, leading companies in Western Europe and America. So actually knowing these things definitely help, and also helps when you are going after hires in the local markets, because
yeah,
it's a little bit of a learning to align with these people, how they think and what they know it's valuable for
yeah,
the local market. So this type of specifics I can talk for hours.
yeah,
And maybe one final thing I'd like to say is, for example, in Middle East, when you agree on some time, even if they come 15 minutes late, it's kind of okay. You say, okay, great, let's jump into the meeting. Actually, you start with some small talk. In Germany, if somebody is like 3 minutes late, it's already what's happening. And
yeah.
yeah, so there's also these things that play a part when you are working with customers worldwide.
Got it. And is there something in common between, I mean, what doesn't change when you're closing a transaction, like when you're talking to customers from the whole world? Is there something that you say, what, no matter how differently they are culturally, this and this is always the same?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I think it's always the same is if you know very well what the actual need is, not what they tell you they need. Um, we're all humans, right? At the end of the day, it's all about, and that's the whole idea of businesses, is to fulfill certain needs. Um, so uncovering, of course, the actual needs is something you should aim for everybody. Harder with some cultures, much easier with others that are much more on front, like Germans, people from Benelux and so on. Harder with some others. um, and I think this is maybe the most common one. When you uncover this need and you show how you can fulfill it, you can have business, right?
Got it.
um, Still, I would like to say that there's maybe more differences than commonalities, but again, this is really universal. At the end, you need to not forget that there is a person on the other end, and he needs, he needs a solution to a problem, or something that will enhance his benefits or opportunities, or whatever he defines as a positive outcome.
Got it. Okay, and one more thing, because you were mentioning like everything from acquiring and retaining clients, right? And I think, I mean, from that sense, some people might say that sales is maybe the most challenging and difficult job because kind of you don't have too much control over the client. But like, I think one thing that's interesting is over the last 6 years, maybe, if we think about, there were so many things, like we had a pandemics, we had I don't know, like military conflicts. Now we have some tariffs being introduced or not, and so on. So, is there anything that, like, does that influence your, let's say, sales efforts on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, if I'm just speaking about Ampeco, COVID was actually quite beneficial for us, because what it did is it actually leveled up the field with our competitors that were much closer to the customers. Like, our biggest competitors are in the Netherlands, Germany, UK, Israel, America, and so on. And when COVID hit, everybody was talking online, right? Also, a lot of companies understood that remote work is something that's completely acceptable. It's fine to work with somebody that you haven't even seen in person, and to do even some pretty important and business critical things with them, like what we are selling, actually, because we are selling a business critical platform. It's a platform that allows you to operate charging network. So these are the chargers that actually charge the electric vehicle. So this is something that shouldn't fall, right? It should be rock solid. It needs to work all the time. And actually, this helped us because companies that probably wouldn't be able to win were willing to give us a chance and to work with us, because I was having a Zoom call with them, even from my child's room. The other competitor is having the same Zoom call, even if the customer is in the Netherlands and the competitor is in the Netherlands. If this wasn't for COVID, he would just say, okay, let's meet for lunch, or would like to come to your office, or let's meet at this event, or at this, I don't know, dinner or something. And they ultimately get an advantage because of that, right? And also, we were at the point where we didn't have the money to travel so much, because it was, I would say, like a difficult moment in time in Ampeco, where we wasn't able to raise because of COVID. And then we needed to be funded ourselves through the customers, so we weren't able to spend anything apart from R&D and a little bit on sales and marketing. So this helped us tremendously, right? And I think it helped in general the industry, because it just showed that you can work much more remote, and it's fine if the vendor is a little bit further um, away. Um, the war, it also had an impact on us. We actually, the biggest energy company in Ukraine is our customer, in fact. And we had several other customers in the area, including even in Belarus and in Ukraine, and all of that, of course, disappeared when it happened. And also, it created a little bit of a stir in Europe, and there was some customers were like, okay, we need to see what's happening. Is it going to be like World War III, or not? And this did a little bit of a delay on what was happening, at least in kind of Central and Eastern Europe. But overall, I wouldn't say there was a big of an impact, because we were already global and we already had customers all over the world. So yeah, in some places things are slowing down, but others are doing great. So this was fine. But of course, as always, these things impact the business, because especially if you need to invest, and the customers we are working with, it's more companies that need to have investment plans. They need to be rolling out these charge points. They need to have millions, or even tens, or even hundreds of millions to be willing to deploy, and let's say to do something that will return money in the future. So when this happens and the investment becomes, let's say, a little bit less risky, or let's say they are not willing to take so much risk, this has an impact, right? And overall, when the whole economy is not great, everybody is taking a hit. What helped us a lot is that, and maybe this also comes with still our Eastern European way of thinking, is that we were, let's say, more efficient, and we weren't willing to, let's say, spend a lot, raise a lot of money, spend a lot of money quickly. We were pacing ourselves, I think, better. And how things turned out was actually in our benefit, because we were the company that was steadily growing, and I mean, actually, we're growing pretty well as a company, but at the same time very efficiently, which turns out to be something that investors and the market appreciate a lot right now, because all they want to see is stability, and we are perceived as a stable company. So, as all of that, this, I think it's very important to don't panic. Like COVID actually could have been the end of us. Don't panic and try to find what are the benefits, and let's say how things are changing, navigate them, because maybe your competitors won't do it as good as you're going to do. And it's not, I mean, whatever happens, usually things doesn't dissolve, right?
Yeah,
And there's just it morphs into something. Okay, it might slow down, it might speed up, or certain process might slow down, speed up. Just make sure to really think about it and speak with thought leaders and people from the industry to understand what's changed and adapt to it, right? And I think we did a
yeah.
pretty good job with that.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree. And maybe one thing that you said very interesting was you're saying Ampeco is actually satisfying a business critical need. So apparently companies need it. And there are many people, and we'll see them also next week at the event. Like there are people who are working on something, but they are thinking of considering pivoting, and like there's still wondering, am I finding the real business need for a customer and so on. So I mean, what would you give as an advice to someone who is still wondering, kind of, okay, I want to have a business, I want to be significant on the market, I want to be having customers and so on, but I still don't believe this is a good idea or that this is really kind of hitting the point. Do you have any kind of advice for someone who's just still at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't want to spoil my talk, because
Okay.
the first like 15 minutes is exactly what I'm going to talk about. But just in short, um, I mean, I mean, if you're a founder and you're doing a startup, I don't know how much time you spend on trying to identify potential customers and actually getting in touch with them and having real conversations. Not like, okay, I put this landing page here, or I have this marketing, I have somebody clicked and downloaded something. I'm really meaning conversations, like we are having right now, or even better if it can be in person. But this is something that I don't think any startup can do enough, right? I mean, it's always better if you do a little bit more, because the best way to answer this question is really the potential customers, right? I mean, you need to be talking with potential customers. You need to be validating that what you have as an idea is actually interesting, and if they're willing to pay money for it, because there's a big difference between, yeah, this is very interesting, but yeah, I don't think I'll be paying X amount for it. um, the more you do this, of course, it shouldn't be the only thing you're doing. You should be building in the same time, but the more you do it and do it in advance, the better you'll be to even adjust. Because, I mean, the story of Ampeco is what we are doing right now wasn't the initial idea. Actually, in the first 1 year, we needed to do a little bit of a pivoting, focusing, repackaging, until we said, okay, this seems to be the thing. So let's double down on it. And even if we were doing this, we've always had a very customer first approach, where it's more about, let's do something like even a mock-up. We've been selling on a mock-up for something like 5 months, really.
Yeah.
And good thing is now technology is so advanced, with some AIs, you can do something that actually looks like a real product working. So of course, use that to your advantage, and definitely spend more time on understanding how to do it. But you can sell on mockups for a relatively long time, and this will give you a ton of information and ton of knowledge, so you can decide whether it's actually worth developing it, or kind of making it production ready, or you should just throw it away and adjust, or I don't know, either do small pivots or big pivots. It depends. So yeah, I mean, I cannot give you the answer. The best answer you can get is from potential customers. If you have, I mean, if you manage to get enough of them, then probably it's worth it. If you feel it's not enough, then you should think about how you expand the offer and how you can kind of address a bigger pool of customers. But that's my best advice. And maybe one final thing, be careful of false positives. Just getting positive vibes and very interesting idea, oh, this is great, and so on and so forth, doesn't mean business, right? It means to be
Yeah.
okay. If you need to pay money for it, how much you might want to pay. And then you can ask, okay, if I actually do a POC or something, could be free of charge in X amount of time, what would happen? Would you act on it, and how would you act? And then make sure they really follow through with whatever their promises are.
Got it. Okay, that's very helpful, and thanks for sharing it. Maybe one last question, because you mentioned you have customers in Ukraine, the US, Western Europe, and so on. So, if we are looking to expand as a startup, um, how do we decide what geography to go to first? Like what, or maybe what was your rationale? Because I guess there is no one solution for everyone.
Yeah, again, that's another thing I'll be speaking at
Okay.
the event.
Okay.
So I'll give a more general answer right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and of course on the event I'll deep dive into Ampeco. I would say I would say first thing you want to answer is what is your ambition, right? Um, One thing that we're seeing is a challenge with Bulgarian companies is that they have big ambitions. They want to be global, but they're all they're doing is pretty much in Bulgaria, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that you should avoid. I mean, if you want to be global, you need to be aiming for some bigger market, right? Also, if something works really well in Bulgaria, it might work for reasons that are beyond the reasons that work in a global setup, right? Because it might be okay, you're actually Bulgarian, so the other guy is Bulgarian. Just because you're close, that's why they want to work with you. It might be because you're actually doing it something very cheap compared to the global options that could be your competitor. And this can give you a false sense of, well, we are killing it because everybody I speak with, they want to work with us, but it won't give you a good answer if this is really a global thing, right? At the same time, don't get me wrong, it's completely fine to do exactly that, because it's also a good first step. I mean, okay, you might want to conquer the home market first, and then you expand. But it's just important to have this maybe as a conversation and decide, am I doing this because this is my strategy, or I'm just doing it because this is the easiest thing, right? I'm
Yeah.
just tackling Bulgaria because it's easy, but at the same time I want to conquer Western Europe or US. So this is one thing that you need to consider. Second thing is, where do you see the biggest potential in terms of, I don't know, even number of customers, but also addressable market, right? Because maybe it's not the best idea to be selling, uh, like ACs to,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, countries that don't need it so much, like the Nordics, for example,
Yeah.
right? So you need to align to where you feel the need is biggest.
Mhm.
And last but not least is where you think you actually have a better chance of winning, right?
Yeah.
And things like, do you actually have some connections somewhere in some of the target markets can help. Do you know the language even? Because at Ampeco, we actually focused on the English speaking markets at the beginning, like UK, because when you're in Germany or in France, yeah, you can still do business in English, but it's
Yeah.
still a
Tough.
disadvantage,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
there is some challenges there. So I would just put it like, how easy you think you can go to this market, because again, it's always fine to say, okay, the, I mean, you can define it as steps, like, okay, we just first do Bulgaria because the closest, we have connections, we have people that want to talk to us just because we have friends, not because we have a product that would be interesting and we can get some insights and so on. just make sure at least you're doing something that will give you potentially the next steps, right? And then of course you can say, okay, next step is UK, then we expand, then we raise. um, with us, it was Western Europe where it was clear we need to go, because this was where the market was the most developed. Although we were kind of addressing a underdeveloped market, it's still a market that's has a long way to go until it becomes mature. But Western Europe is where things were happening, right? If we were
Yeah.
trying to do America, it would be much difficult because America was like few years back compared to Europe. So that's why it made sense to go to Western Europe for us. But this can
Got
be
it.
completely different for you. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
doing AI stuff, I mean, actually now AI maybe it's everywhere, but there's just places that they're much more, let's say, supportive. For example,
Yeah.
you might even want to go to Dubai because there's some really good programs and fundings and accelerators for AI, of course, if you don't go to America. So this also things you need to consider.
Yeah.
But maybe final just wrap up, if you have global ambitions, just try not to talk about it without putting any plan into it. Just
Yeah.
try to put the plan and be realistic that if you want to go global, you need to aim a little bit higher, maybe from the beginning, even, right? Or at least make some steps earlier in the journey. Otherwise, you might stick too much to the local, and this will constrain you because still it's a very small market. Even the price wise, the money you can get here is nothing compared to what you can get in Western Europe or US. And this also is problematic because you can spend too much time with customers that are not don't have the money, which can impact growth, and you might not be able to generate
Yeah.
the revenue and even able to raise something that you need to tackle the bigger market.
Got it. Okay, that's very useful, Stefan. And if that was the short answer, I imagine like the full overview we're going to see at the event next week. So I mean, highly appreciate you taking the time to share all of this with us. So once again, very very useful. I appreciate how busy you are. So highly appreciate you are here with us today. And we're going to see you next Thursday at the Intercontinental Startup Bulgaria, the Scale Edition. We're starting at around 1:32, so please be there on time, everyone. And thanks, Stefan. I'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah, thanks, Ogi, and see you next Thursday.
Great. Thank you. Окей, готови сме.
Това ли беше супер?
Това беше. Надявам се, че ти беше полезно и приятно. На мен ми беше.